Hey guys, welcome back. This video will be in a different style than usual. Normally for my scripted content, I have my editors make the video all fancy and stuff, but while this video is scripted, just so I don't ramble on too much, our topic for today is kind of time sensitive, so I want to go through things a bit faster. What's going to happen in the background is just some gameplay footage of me playing around with the new tank mythic items, and there won't be that many fancy graphics or edits this time around. Hope you're okay with that. I'm just in a hurry to get this video released on time. Preseason 13 is finally out, and while it's not the most ambitious preseason we've seen so far, it's definitely not the least. There were a ton of new updates to the mythic item system, even more than last year, and alongside that we have the jungle changes and Chemtech Drake being reinstated. I made a pre-update first impressions video on that a while ago if you're interested in checking that out, but I wanted to go more in depth on the new items, because they might shape Season 13 depending on how they're handled for better or worse. Of course, numbers and balance will always be subject to change throughout the year, but the concept fundamentally stays the same. So what I'll be doing is going through every item that was added or changed and offer my opinions on how they'll influence the meta and the champions purchasing them. But first, I'd like to say thank you to our sponsor for today. Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co are back. Last month they had a Halloween theme, and this time we're going for a more autumn season vibe. Tokyo Treat's theme this time around is Akiba Adventure, featuring many limited edition and exclusive pop culture snacks found in Tokyo's #1 spot for gaming, manga, anime, and electronics, Akihabara. Some stuff to look forward to are the Autumn Chestnut Kit Kats, Mystery Flavor Fanta, and Puku Puku Lemon Tea Taiyaki. As for Sakura-ko, instead of a place, we're going for more of a theme. Colors of Koyo. Koyo refers to the changing colors of autumn foliage, so they wanted to focus on a fall theme. Inside we have momiji, or Japanese maple leaf shaped snacks like the momiji manju and cookie, walnut mochi, and some savory snacks like hand-grilled taco senbei and spiced arare. You can pair this up with some autumn genmai tea as well. The main difference between Tokyo Treat and Sakura-ko, if you only want to purchase one, is that the former has more popular snacks, while the latter focuses on products that are based on certain cultures and areas of Japan, so feel free to choose one or the other or both. Just like before, if you use my code Vars, you get $5 off your first Sakura-ko or Tokyo Treat box. I also have links in the description below for you to use as well. Thanks once again to Tokyo Treat and Sakura-ko for sponsoring the video, but for now, let's get back into it. The focal point of this preseason's mythic item update is geared towards tanks. Tanks have been in a very uncomfortable spot for years now, and it's only gotten worse after the item system overhaul brought in mythics. In response to the long-spanning tank meta from seasons 5 to 8, Riot sought to incorporate more universal countermeasures against the class, not only making runes like Conqueror, Cut Down, and whatnot, but adding more items that can efficiently deal with them: Black Cleaver, Blade of the Ruined King, Void Staff, Kraken Slayer, Divine Sunder, Lord Dominic's, Swordless Grudge, Eclipse, Riftmaker, etc. Some have been around since the dawn of time, others are new. They ended up sort of overcorrecting though. Now there's too many answers to tanks that you even have assassins chainsawing their way through them, even though tanks are supposed to be the ones shutting down assassins. To give them more agency instead of boosting their defense even further, Riot made it so they would deal more damage, causing tanks to now have a lot of kill pressure that they're not meant to have. Chances are you've seen many tanks run Sunfire Aegis, Demonic Embrace, and racking up thousands of damage. It seems like they want to tip the scales back a bit to find a more healthy middle ground where there's an even balance of tank items and items that can stop tanks. Time to see what they have in store for us. Let's start with the mythics. First, we have jak'sho the Protean. Is it jak'sho or jak'sho? I'm gonna say jak'sho. It costs 3000 gold and gears 400 health, 30 armor, 30 magic resist, and 20 ability haste. Standard fare for tank items. As for its unique passive, Voidborn Resilience, for each second in champion combat you gain a stack granting 2 armor and magic resist up to 8 max for a total of 16 each. Upon reaching max stacks, you immediately drain 3% max health from all enemies around you, reduced to 1% for minions and monsters, while increasing your armor and MR by an additional 10% for that duration. This is sort of meant to be the spiritual successor to Sunfire Aegis. Sunfire was a tank mythic item of choice for long extended fights, and it did that job really well, but kind of in the wrong field. It did way too much damage for a tank item, so instead of boosting your damage over time, jak'sho makes you tankier over time, as well as granting a bit of sustain. It's a decent option for tanks who take a while to go down, like Maokai, Scion, and Zac. But I feel like having to wait 8 seconds to get the full bonus is too long for any situation other than late game 5v5s, and even then the outcome of most team fights is decided before 8 seconds anyway. Credit where credit is due, it's a much healthier design for a tank than Sunfire making tanks deal more damage than 80 carries, but consider this. Typically, mythic items are meant to be your first purchase. The ones that are popular are because they provide an immediate power spike during the early game. Eclipse helps you out with short burst trades, Divine Sunder makes your auto attack damage hurt a bit more and sustain you, Luden's Tempest provides you with much needed mana and ability haste, stuff like that. jak'sho provides you with good stats, but not right away, which might discourage players from building it even if it is beneficial for them, out of fear that they'll shoot themselves in the foot during the early game, especially if the enemy laner builds something that provides more immediate value, like the next item. For those of you who saw my preseason first impressions video, you'll know that I was very apprehensive about Heartsteel. Don't get me wrong, one of my favorite champions is Mundo, and this item is like sex on the beach for him, but regarding how potentially dangerous this might be on certain champions, maybe not worth it. Costing 3200 gold, it offers virtually the same stats as Warmog's armor, 800 health, 200% bonus regen, 20 ability haste, and even has the same recipe. For the item passive, think of it like Demolish on champions. You know, the rune that deals bonus damage to towers after you wait a few seconds. It deals a huge amount of base damage plus 6% of your max health to the target, and permanently increases your max health equal to 10% of that amount. So it's like Grasp of the Undying plus Demolish. Here's the kicker. It can apply once every 30 seconds to each individual enemy champion. Assuming the average person who would want to build this is more than 3000 HP in the mid game, you're staring down 300 damage per hit and 30 bonus HP added to you per target. And if you think about how many times the tank would auto attack people over the course of a fight, this item can easily double or triple its health value. Comparing Heartsteel to jak'sho, I find it hard for any tank to want to buy the latter since its value is not only not immediate, but it doesn't really outpace the former later on, especially when there are more tanks to scale off of max or bonus health than armor and magic resist. And again, jak'sho offers no bonus damage outside a 3% max out life drain that happens only once per fight. Meanwhile, Heartsteel is excellent for short trades and grows in power as the game goes on. I wouldn't be surprised if Heartsteel got hotfix nerfed again. It used to be 10% max health instead of 6. Granted, it's a very solid item for HP stackers like Scion, Cho'Gath, or Mundo, but I feel like they accidentally did the whole Spirit Visage adaptive helm thing where one is just so much more universally applicable than the other, even on champions who theoretically benefit from said other. So Iceborne Gauntlet is back and operates more or less the same as it used to, only instead of giving mana, it gives health. The Soul Field also comes with a 10% damage reduction on your primary target, which is good for short burst trades. Once again though, I feel like its value is overshadowed by Heartsteel if we look at the numbers. Iceborne Gauntlet grants two things, increased damage and stick potential. Tanks like Malphite and Shen make good use of this due to having strong trades, especially since both have empowered auto attacks. And once again though, I feel like the purpose overlaps with Heartsteel and jak'sho in some ways. Now 1-to-1, certain tanks really need that Iceborne slow so as not to get kited, but evaluating both of them on short burst trades, Iceborne only outpaces Heartsteel if you're constantly fighting, as Heartsteel has a 30-second cooldown on its passive, but if you're constantly fighting, you'll want jak'sho instead. I feel like the only incentive to purchase Iceborne is for the slow, and maybe tenacity and slow resist from the mythic passive. When I picture most popular top lane tanks like Shen, Sejuani, Ornn, Maokai, Scion, Gragas, I feel like most of them would rather have the infinite stacking health, which also does a shitload of damage. Tanks usually have crowd control anyway. Then again, for all I know, Iceborne might come out on top and I'm just overrating Heartsteel. Moving on, let's talk about everyone's favorite item returning to the game, Rod of Ages. So I actually had a few comments in my Should Items Come Back video asking why Rod of Ages is so good when it's mostly just stats. You're right, it is mostly stats, but it's the right combination of stats. First off, most AP champs who are mana hungry like Anivia, Ryze, and Kassadin don't have the best range, so they'll be fighting either mid-range or close range, thus being vulnerable to enemy fire. 500 HP can help you out with that, and of course, the mana. One other thing is that the Catalyst passive, where taking damage restores your mana and using mana restores some health, allows you to sustain yourself for a bit longer than other mages normally would. To make it more appealing as a mythic item, Roa has a few new things. When reaching full stacks, you instantly level up, and if you remember, Kassadin, Ryze, and Anivia, they power spike really hard at level 11 and 16, so the faster they get those power spikes, the better. The Catalyst passive still has the health and mana restoration, but for every 250 health and or mana restored this way, you get a brief speed boost, perfect for battle mages who are constantly fighting and need to reposition. I'm honestly surprised they took away Roa in the first place so mythics were brought in, seeing as that item was built more often than even stuff like Ludens. Good to have it back though, and I think the extra stuff they added modernizes it to be more beneficial for those who want to build it. Excellent reinstitution, although it's kind of weird that it's green and not purple anymore. Okay, so those were the new mythics. Now I'll go through the legendary item changes and give my thoughts on them. Abyssal Mask is first. Unlike Roa, I actually like that it's green now because it looks more Shadow Isle-y. The gold cost was moderately increased, but the stats were amped up considerably. 500 health, 300 mana, 40 magic resist, and 10 ability haste. That's a pretty serious deal for only 300 extra gold cost, and of course it has the Catalyst passive like it did pre-mythics. I think now with those assortment of stats, Abyssal Mask is going to be purchased a lot. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Kassadin going Roa, Seraphs, and Abyssal and have 3000 HP, 3000 mana. They might need to be careful with that. A lot of items were also reverted back to pre-mythic versions like Randuin's and Sunfire. They tried to make Randuin's Omen a more skill-expressive item, but that ended up making it too situational and less reliable. There was also a bit of a counterproductive issue of Randuin's being very armor-focused, even though ADCs have Kraken Slayer's true damage now, so they brought it back to 400 HP 60 armor and made the crit resist a passive again like it used to. Over the past few years, Randuin's was definitely shoved out of the way in favor of Thornmail or Deadman's, which had a more stable balance of armor and health. There's also a lot of crit damage running around too. For the past few months I've seen Kindred Jungle, Yona mid, and crit ADC, which got annoying real fast. Sunfire Aegis was brought back to normal too. I think Riot realized that giving tanks the same DPS as a fighter while being extra tanky was not a good look for them. I also think it's not something that you should be allowed to build for every situation. It was more balanced as an armor exclusive item. Turbo Chem Tank is no longer a mythic either, another good choice. It was too situational to be a mythic item, and the only time anyone would want to use it was when it was overtuned, like when there was Turbo Chem Tank Akali or Deer and Hecarim meta way back at the start of Season 11. Interestingly though, it's a magic resist item, not armor. I am a little skeptical about this approach, since it's going to be compared to Spirit Visage, Force of Nature, and the new Abyssal Mask. Kinda defeats the purpose of trying to make it less of a committal purchase. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of tanks who want that extra engage potential, but making it MR exclusive might deter players from wanting to build it. Righteous Glory was used a lot because it provided health, mana, and armor, 3 stats that virtually every tank wanted. Magic Resist not so much, and it doesn't give mana anymore. Then again, we have Dead Man's Plate, so by having Chem Tank an armor item, that would make it kind of redundant. Moving on, we have Ravenous Hydra. I like this change. Ravenous Hydra was statistically worse than Titanic because it was too specific and too risky of a purchase just for the ability to wave clear. So when Season 11 came along, they made it give Omnivamp and made it apply on abilities and made it purchasable by ranged champions, but even then, it was still kind of meh. So what they're doing now is making it so you can preemptively stack more power on it by wave clearing. Those who build Ravenous Hydra are usually fantastic sideliners like Fiora and Camille. This will make them even more so. One more thing is that Tiamat and Ravenous were massively buffed in terms of their splash damage to where it's the same amount of damage to all targets regardless of how close they are to the center. It's still very early on in the version, but I've seen Jax abuse the living daylights out of Hydra since he autos so fast and deals 60% of that to all targets around him with each of his attacks and abilities. That's kind of broken, not gonna lie. 90 attack damage, 14% Omnivamp, and all of your attacks and abilities do splash damage to nearby enemies. Honestly, this might be too good on certain champions, but at least it establishes a more convincing reason to buy Hydra. Alright, 2 more items to go. I know there's a lot of them. Spirit Shojin is back, thankfully not in the same way as it was before. It has roughly the same stats as before, but not as burst heavy anymore. That being said, the ones who bought Shojin back then are the same ones who would want to buy Shojin now. Riven, Renekton, Jax, what have you. Champions whose DPS is split evenly across abilities and autos. I like that they reduce the intensity of cooldown reduction in exchange for making it permanently active. That makes the item power spike less polarizing, and that was kinda the main issue with it before. Last one is Navori Quick Blades. Similarly to Ravenous Hydra, the item was too niche even for crit users, to the point where basically only 2 champions bought this item, Lucian and Tryndamere. So what they're doing is making you choose between Infinity Edge and Quick Blades by boosting ability damage based on crit chance on top of auto attacks reducing cooldowns. While I like what they did with Shojin, I don't think they understand the reason Quick Blades wasn't used that much. Most crit users either have really short cooldowns already, like Yasuo and Yone. In their case, their abilities don't even scale off ability haste, it scales off attack speed. Or they don't want to even crit in the first place, like Ezreal or Vayne. Doing this will help make it more efficient on Tryndamere or Lucian, but it's not really a strong enough incentive for new buyers because they don't need to use their abilities that much anyway. That and the crit damage boost from Infinity Edge is too good to pass up most of the time. Okay, so there we have it. To sort of TLDR everything, tank mythics are cool and I'm interested in seeing what they'll do, but I feel like Heartsteel is just infinitely better than the other two if we go by late game scaling. I might be wrong though. My thoughts on the rest of the items are a bit divided. Some of them were excellent like Roa, Shojin, Hydra, but then there's a few questionable ones like Chem Tank, Quick Blades, and Abyssal. I'm not saying Abyssal is bad, I think it's actually really good, it's just I'm worried that it could be heavily abusable with Rod of Ages and making mages too tanky while still doing a lot of damage. All in all, I think we're going to see another tank meta. I mean, I'm not complaining. My champion pool consists of tanks and tank busters, so this is my favorite meta. Fight me. But yeah, I'm excited for Season 13. I think it has the potential to make or break the game's experience, and players have been growing exhausted of League for a while, so hopefully this will make them come back. But what do you guys think? Do you enjoy the item changes so far, or do you think they're bad for the game? Let me know in the comments down below. Aside from that, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my Preseason 13 First Impressions video if you haven't yet. I covered the other stuff like jungle changes and communications in that video. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.